Something that might be holding you back in life is trauma energy. Today in this video, I'm going to break it down, how trauma affects you, how you can start to heal your trauma, and how you can actually create the life that you desire. If you and I have not met yet, my name is Troy, and my goal is to help you 10x your results in life. For years, I was stuck and buried in my own trauma. At the time, I didn't even know what trauma meant. Like literally, if you told me something about healing or trauma work, I'd be like, what does that even mean? But the reality was I was stuck in so much trauma. Trauma from my childhood, trauma as an adult. And here's how we're going to create like a working definition of trauma. It's any situation that in the moment was overwhelming for you. So you might look at it now and be like, it's not that big of a deal. Like maybe you're a kid, you're in a grocery store, you're with mom and dad, they lose sight of you and you're lost. You start to cry, you start to shake. You're like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. And you look at it now, you're like, you were just a kid, you got lost in the grocery store. But the reality is what took place is there was a story that was created. And that story might be something like, I'm not safe. I'm not lovable. And so what that's called is inference. Situation takes place, travels into the psyche, into the brain, and we produce an outcome because your brain is designed for survival and not success. And so I want you to understand that. So what it's doing, it's creating like these safety loops for you. But sometimes those safety loops, if unprocessed or unhealed, like undigested, they create stuck points. They create these stories, right? So it creates a story. In that situation, maybe it's, I'm not safe. Okay, and then you go on later on, you're an adult, you go into a relationship. You're like, oh my gosh, this is the person, I love them so much, this is gonna be it. They cheat on you, or they break up with you. You've ever had that happen? And guess what? You create another story. Situation, an event takes place, travels into the psyche, and the psyche creates a story out of it. I'm not lovable, I'm not safe. Maybe it reinforces that earlier story that you have. And the reality is, you probably have tons of these. And so when we do this, we create all these different meanings. Inference, okay? I want you to understand that word. What that means, like the actual definition of that is like pass on or carry through. But I want you to understand that we can change this. So I'll draw this weird little thing above your head because you're going to change the meaning, the inference of things. That's one of the ways we can start to heal our trauma. For me, when I had all this situations, now look, a lot of you have more than other people, right? Some of you are going to experience a whole lot of trauma. Hands up, right? Some other people, not as much. But when you experience trauma, it still creates those stories. And so if you have a lot of trauma or even a little bit of trauma, it starts to create a whole lot of meanings over here. So then you have these excess stories that start to create your reality. And again, for me, when I looked at it, what I was doing is I was creating a reality based out of my fears. Like I literally remember thinking like, damn, like my life is like this house built out of toothpicks. And it was like I could just blow it down. I'd created a reality in my fear because what starts to take place when you have all these stories, all this trauma, is you go out of your body and into your head. What that means is your body is very energetic. Like quite literally it has 1 trillion nerve cells. It's designed to feel. You're supposed to be sensitive. To be sensitive means to have sensation. You're supposed to have an intuition. You feel your way through life. That's what it means to have like a full body yes. Someone's like, hey, do you want to do this? You're like, yeah, I want to do that. You feel it. But what starts to happen is when you have a lot of trauma, you get disconnected from the body. Everything pushes up into your head because your brain takes over because it's designed for survival and not success, and it goes on high alert and it starts to predict the future based out of the past. So it's using old data to try to predict your future. So of course, it's going to look at its fears because it's designed for survival and not success. So it's staring at all the old stuff, the crappy stuff, right? And so what we want to do is start to change some of those stories. Like for me, I was very stiff when I was traumatized, very tight. Your trauma responses are going to be fight, flight, or freeze. So you're always going to be stuck in those, like oscillating between those when you have a lot of trauma. And so I was always oscillating between those different energies, fight, flight, freeze, stiff, rigid, tight. And so I had to start to heal the energy, get my body, this connection back to my intuition. But I did it by starting to change these stories. So I might look at the story of the grocery store and go, man, wait a second, mom and dad, they're people too, right? Like maybe they have their own shit going on. Maybe they're chaotic. They're fighting with each other. They're whatever, right? Like you can relate to that, I'm sure. And so when I look at it and go, I actually was lovable. I actually was safe. Just in that moment, yeah, I was a kid. I was 7. I couldn't survive on my own, but I'm different today than I was yesterday, and certainly different than I was when I was 7 years old. And so I start to change that story and go, I'm safe now. I got different skills. Maybe that relationship, you look at it and you go, you know what? They would have cheated on anyone else. If it wasn't me, it would have been that person because they were screwed up. They had their own trauma going on, their own stories, their own stuff of I'm not lovable, I'm not enough. Who knows, a whole list of stuff that they were never going to heal. And so they were looking for it in someone else to like self-validate by getting it through someone else. And so you go, you know what? Maybe there's some stuff I could have done differently. Sure, we want to own that. But I actually am lovable. I actually am okay. So we're creating new inference here, right? That's what that little squiggly line means. New inference, new definitions. So now what this does, here's the power in this, right? Maybe you enter a new relationship and someone, you call them and they don't call you back right away. Rather than having a story that says, I'm not lovable, I'm not safe, what that causes you to do is react in those situations. You don't respond, you react. And we all know what reaction feels like. It's too much. Like a quick way to see that is if something's a level 2, like it's not that big of a deal, but it feels like a level 10. That's when you're in trauma energy. You're in these stories, right? And so by changing those stories and going, wait, I am lovable. I am enough. I've always been enough. And they're at the grocery store, they don't call you back, whatever. You have a different meaning in here, and you might see it for what it is. Maybe they forgot their phone in the car. Rather than they get back to the car and there's like 6 text messages and 3 phone calls from you. They're like, oh my God, maybe this isn't the person I want to be with. So do you see how by changing these stories, you start to infer different meaning and you can create a reality based on actually what you want to feel in life versus this thing that's maybe stuck in trauma. You start to heal it, you start to build a bridge between your head and your heart. And remember, your heart has an energy to it, an intuition, an intelligence to it. And you need to build this bridge. You need to connect the two again. And so you can do it by going into these stories, coming back into the present moment, reconnecting to your breath. Your breath is very centered. It's always going to bring you to the present moment. So there's a lot more to this, but I want to get you kind of rolling in that direction. Healing my trauma has helped me so much. Again, I was creating a reality, looked like toothpicks that I could just blow down. But now I believe I'm creating a reality based on my heart and what I want to create in life, what I feel best in life. And I want that for you too. So I'll keep this going for you. We'll do more in the future. But I make these videos for you. I want to see you heal. I want to see you happy. I want to see you healthy. I want to see you win. So if you can do me a favor, let me know how it's going. Drop a comment in the comment section and we'll connect. I look forward to meeting in person someday. And until next time, peace.